Tonight, I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Pete Jacelone from New Jersey. Very happy to welcome a genre director. You know, sometimes myself as a writer, critic, curator, I see a lot of very touching subjects, drama. Sometimes we see comedy, but of course, every now and then, every one of us, has a tendency to see some chilling films to change the mood a little bit. And I'm very happy we will discuss this genre right now through the works of Mr. Jacelone. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on your program.
Thank you, sir. Right now, I see that you've been born in the 50s, you know.
Yes, that is correct.
It is, it is between brackets.
I grew up on the original horror, the 1930s Frankenstein and Dracula.
Yeah.
And I went through the Hammer Pictures genre. So I've seen a lot of stuff in the old days.
So the 50s, you know, they were very special, you know, and I was interviewing another filmmaker, actually a music composer, and he told me a very interesting, word. You know, he told me that like black and white is fiction and color is reality. So it's a very interesting concept. But I want to tell you, how did you, in the 50s, 60s, interesting filmmakers, interesting shows like Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Outer Limits. You know, it was a very rich period to grow up. How did you get influenced by all of that?
Well, of course, I enjoyed those old shows, Twilight Zone in particular. I like the irony of the shows that there was always a dark, sometimes dark humor. The main character would end up in a bad way. There wasn't always a hero. And I enjoyed the intrigue of the Twilight Zone episodes and the simplicity of them. They were really only a half hour long, probably only 20 minutes long, simple sets, but yet very psychologically powerful. I think that inspired me when I was a kid. What really inspired me was I was in a drive-in movie. I don't know if they have drive-in movies by you, but I grew up in that era. They had a double feature: the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead was a black and white film, you may recall. And I was 17 at the time, or maybe 16, and I thought, wow, I would love to create something like this. So frightening, so horrifying, so interesting. So that inspired me. And then many years later, I made my first film. Actually, I was 25 when I made my first film, Psycho Sisters, about two serial killer women.
Yes,
but I was definitely inspired by the old programs, no question.
Yes, but I mean, before your first film, a director, I think you worked in other film jobs before, correct?
That is true. A friend of mine actually worked in a cable station. So he had access to cameras and to equipment, and he had a television show, and he was also involved in independent films. So I started as an actor. He said, "Hey, I'm shooting a movie. You want to come over?" And I played an extra in a movie called Ghoul School, and I did some just very low budget shot on video shorts back before I made my first film. As soon as I can get a camera, and at that time it was a camera in combination with a actually the first one was a beta tape recorder with a camera attached to it. And then of course they made camcorders. But yeah, I started shooting some stuff with my friends, I guess way back in the late 80s, actually. So, but as soon as I realized, hey, I can make a movie, I did it. And actually my first film, Psychosis, was shot on film. It was shot on a 16 millimeter film in 1999. But before that, it was just, shot on video like everybody else was doing.
Yes, what I want to ask you about that era when you started as a director
Hmm.
was a very, I mean, rich in content because it was the time of VHS tapes.
Yes.
And there were a lot of films, I mean, a lot of films, straight to videos. And, it was crazy,
Mhm.
in every genre, comedy, horror, thrillers, drama. I mean, do you think that that era is better or worse than right now? Everything is digital streaming, or every time has its own like concept.
Yeah, well, I miss that era, and the thing about that era is there wasn't there wasn't that many people. I mean, there was a lot of films being made, low budget B films, and you're right, horror, adventure, genre, exploitation, um, erotic films, but not everybody had a camcorder. Like now, I mean, my mother had, everybody has a camcorder, so anybody can make a film.
Mm.
So I think the things are over infiltrated. I think back then you really had to have a little bit of talent to turn to make a film. It was a fun time, and there was more of a demand for those films. You can, if you did something good, you can get on Netflix, and you could get distribution. Now there's just too much. There's just too many people doing it. I prefer DVD. I prefer theatrical films. Streaming, it's a whole new era, and I might be a little behind the times
Yes.
with some of the new technologies. Distribution is not what it used to be, and again, anybody could make a film and get it out there. So it's I like the old era better, but I'm old, so
But I want to tell you,
old in mind.
you did yourself, I think, some erotic films, like the erotic mirror. But at the time, I remember, companies like Mystique Films, they produced a lot and lot of films,
Hmm.
with, very beautiful women like Shannon Tweed, Shannon Weary. And the tapes, they used to have very smart taglines. Like I remember there was a film with Andrew Stevens called Night Eyes,
Hmm.
very famous. They did many sequels. And I remember the tagline on the cover, the more he watches, the more he wanted.
It was a different time, and at that time, nudity was very common and
Yeah,
exploitation. It's different now. In fact, companies want less nudity, less
yeah, yeah.
exploitation.
Yes, it's
Different time.
yes.
But you're right. Yeah, they really created lines to
Crazy.
sell.
But tell me right now, before we move to a little bit, I see in your filmography you used another name in some of the films, Todd Russell. Why was that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Todd Russell is a character in my first movie. He
Yes.
was a boy that, or a young man that fell in love with a female serial killer
Mhm.
um, from Psycho Sisters, and you only see his name. By the way, not too many people know this, so this is an interesting fact. You
Mhm.
only see his name written on a piece of paper. He writes his name and phone number and gives it to the serial killer. And of course, he meets a very untimely ending. At the end of the movie, dies. But I adapted that stage name for some of my lower budget films back in the day, and I still use it as a character name sometimes, Todd Russell. But now I don't care. I use my real name. Uh,
It is your
what could happen?
Alan Smithy, Todd Russell, your Alan Smith.
And Todd Russell is my production company. THR Productions
Very
is
nice.
Todd Henry Russell. So I
Yeah,
still use that name.
you still use it. Very good. Right now, tell me how, I mean, logistic wise, you talk about production, you're a filmmaker. You
Hmm.
started to work in, the 90s and then the new century. A lot of
Hmm.
changes. I think the industry changed a lot in the last 20 years. You know,
It has. It
new
has.
media, new media. and you started in 16 millimeter. Right now, everything is shot in on digital.
Hmm.
There is mobile phones, cell phone. People are doing films using them. So,
Yes.
as I don't want to say a veteran director, but as a director who have been through these changes, how did you succeeded or try to change along with, you know?
Well, you know, the interesting thing about me, and perhaps I'm reluctant to admit, is I don't have any formal film training. I did not go to film school. So I'm self-taught, and I learned by doing. And I think that served as an advantage for. I mean, I did have my friend who was worked for cable. He had some knowledge that I learned from him. But basically, I don't think I think it was an advantage because I didn't know how things were done properly. So I said, well, let's do this, just shoot this. And I am an artist. I was an art major. I'm a music major as well. So I had some innate creative ability. But I think by not having the formal training, in many ways, it worked to my advantage that I just did things the way I thought could be done. So I was easily adapted to the changes of the industry. A few of my films have been very formal, like Psycho Sisters, where we have a large crew. But understand, it's micro budget. I'm very low budget. We call
Yes.
it micro budget. But I think if you light things correctly and do proper sound, you can create something that looks like $1 million project on only, you know, several $1,000s. So again, I think not knowing the proper way to do things, I was able to adapt to the many changes. I actually liked it. I was very hesitant to go from tape to digital. I thought, well, what happens if the computer crashes? What happens if you lose the digital content? But now, of course, I love digital. I love the adaptability of it. I love the way you can manipulate it. I mean, in the old days, we would edit a film. You'd start in the beginning and you would piece it together and then you would finish it. If you made a mistake in the beginning, you couldn't really go back with film editing. Now you can do anything. You can put the ending at the beginning. So it's really some great changes
Mm.
with digital.
Okay.
But the disadvantage is anybody can do it. And you know, you can get free programs online. You know, it's good that anybody can be a filmmaker, but it infiltrates the market.
Yes. But this is from the technical point of view. I mean, when we connected, you sent me your latest short, Take My Breath Away.
Oh,
Okay. And but I want to ask you right now how I see in your filmography some new films in
mhm.
preparation, like Demented Doctors, Sins, you know, side show of Psychosis in pre-production, correct?
Mhm.
But I want to
Yes,
tell you, how do you manage right now? We will say you do it independently, but how do you manage
yes.
find financing currently? I mean, money-wise, how does it happen?
Well, I've always self-financed. I You know, in the old days, I would charge my credit card and just do it. I've never had an investor. I never wanted to get anybody else involved that you had to pay back. So I always managed to stay within my means and keep budget very low. Um, Oftentimes getting people to help me for no charge or paying you know, minimal amounts using film students that are looking for help. There's ways to keep budget down, but yet not compromise the quality of the movie. Um, so it hasn't been a problem for me for getting finances, again, because it's very low budget. And the stuff I do, I often spread out over a period of time. I may shoot a film over the course of 6 months, so I'm able to budget as I go along. And I use the money I make from old projects. I have a download site uh, that brings me some income, and I use that money to basically invest in new projects. None of my projects have made $1 million, but each project has made enough to pay for itself and to allow me to buy new equipment and to finance the next, especially those shorts, the Dr. Lawrence shorts that are centered around a psychiatric institute. They're very low budget,
Yes.
and you know, but yet they're unique content. I acted in them myself. I played Dr. Lawrence, a psychiatrist, and I introduced them very much the way Rod Serling introduced his Twilight Zone episodes. I assume you've seen some of the stuff online that I've had on YouTube. So those are very low budget productions that I use to generate some income to finance a higher budget film, which might be The Killer Clown Meets the Candyman or The Cannibal Killer, which are feature length films that I'm really you know, spend more time and more money on. But
Yes. I have, you know, some couple of questions. First, before I ask you specific ones about COVID, you know, why do you think that some kind of elements, you know, that, you know, when they are approached by horror, you know, I mean, like clowns, for instance, they should make people laugh, you know. But you know, you see it by Stephen King. There was a documentary as well, but it's never finished. Maybe you have heard of it. It's a documentary about killer clowns, you know. But the filmmakers, because there are some cases, you know, of serial killer wearing clowns.
yes,
So
John Gacy in particular played Pogo the Clown, and
yes,
as you know, I made a feature film about him,
yeah,
and we pull no punches on showing, you know, that's I think clowns are fascinating because they're a disguise, and they disguise what is behind. It's like wearing a mask.
yes,
It disguises what a true identity. I feel sorry for clowns. I do know a couple professional clowns that have suffered greatly in their profession by the the killer clown concept.
yes,
But you can say the same with doctors. There's many doctors that, you know, there's the mad doctor. And not all doctors aren't
yes,
all mad. So I think any profession
of course.
could have a dark side. But clowns, yeah, they got a bad rap with all the killer clown movies. That I too I'm fascinated by shooting, you know, films with clowns in them.
And sometimes in circuses, you know, if you remember the classic horror film Freaks, the black and white one, I think you have seen it. Of
That is a great movie. You know,
course,
don't tell anybody, but
of
I
course.
would love to see that movie remade now.
Yeah, it's
I would like to do it myself, actually. I'd like to remake Freaks one day.
yes, and it keeps on being imitated all the time. You know, I remember also, I think it was Joe Dante who did the Fun House. Also, it was
Yes.
very scary film inside, you know, a fun house or some
Hmm.
kind of a circus. You know, it's very
Hmm.
creepy. But
Yes.
let me ask you, as a genre director, you know,
Hmm.
of course, you have did films about zombies, about I don't know if you have made a film about virus, but how did you see this COVID thing, you know, yourself from a perspective of a horror filmmaker?
Well, COVID is horrible. It on a personal level, it basically stopped my all productions. I was going to be making a movie this summer
Mhm.
um, about serial killers. Of course, that's my favorite subject. It was going to be about a number of serial killers that meet and discuss, you know, their particular form of murder.
Yes,
But everything went stopped when COVID came, and we were hit very big in New Jersey, New York, as you know. But I was fascinated that amidst the horror of COVID, uh, filmmakers, artists, musicians started posting things online. People were doing things in the confines of their own house, of their own quarantine, and there were some very compelling one-man films that I saw the first few weeks that we were in quarantine, and I thought that's you know, as artists, um, we shouldn't stop. We need entertainment. The public needs entertainment, and even mainstream television started doing shows at home. I was fascinated I was fascinated by that. So I wanted to make my own contribution. I wanted to make a film, but I didn't want to do it myself. I wanted to get actors involved. So I sent an email to about 15 young actors I know. Some were as young as 13. The oldest is maybe 21. Film students, acting students, and asked them if they would shoot. If I wrote a scene, would they shoot it? And I was surprised. 15 out of every single one said absolutely yes. Amidst the horror, amidst their quarantine, being out of school, being quarantined at home, every single one shot my scene, and I put it together and created this half-hour film, Take My Breath Away.
Yes.
And I think it was fairly innovative. I don't know of too many other filmmakers at that time. April 15th, that was when things were just getting hot. I don't know of too many filmmakers that were shooting things using other actors remotely. I think now there's been quite a few. I think more filmmakers have come forth with projects recently that they have shot in quarantine or obeying the mandates of isolation. But at that time, I don't know of any of my friends or anybody doing it. It was a lot of fun to do something, and we're still impacted. The film industry is still very badly impacted by the restrictions of COVID.
Yes. So I want to know right now about your films. Are they available on streaming or on a certain website or?
Yes. Well, some of my films have been distributed. Psycho Sisters is out there. Anymore, I self-distribute. I have a website that I self-distribute on. It's a Gumroad site, gumroad.com.
Yes.
And I make my films available on DVD for the old timers, but also you can download them and some you can stream. And it's, I found that by self-distributing them, I'm able to generate more income than if I distribute them in mainstream, because frankly, there's not a lot of good, for my level of filmmaking, which is micro budget, there's not a lot of distributors that are willing to pay anything. If you get a streaming service, even Amazon Prime or Netflix picked up my film Psycho Sisters, but that was a long time ago. Now they're not really independent friendly anymore because they're producing their own projects.
Yes.
And many of the streaming networks are producing their own, or they're very selective in what they're shooting or in what they're accepting. So I've found that I can generate enough income to make me happy by self-distributing them.
Yes.
On my website, which is lawrencepsychiatricinstitute.com. Have you seen it?
No, but you can share with me the link so we can share it as well, on YouTube and in the interview. But as a continuation to what you have said, I've seen recently a lot of stuff produced by Amazon, Netflix, Hulu.
Yes.
And right now, the production,
Apple Pictures.
Apple, of course, the production values are very big right now compared to Hollywood studios. And they hire, big stars. And big stars right now, they don't worry anymore to work on television. Because the two media came, very close together, television and movies.
Yes.
So I think through your model, your working model, a lot of filmmakers that works in micro budget or low budget or whatever should adapt this model, to continue on working, because you cannot compete with a big budget television series or a Hollywood studio. It's a completely different environment, correct?
That is correct, and also different subject. I think Hollywood pictures, to a greater extent, to a lesser extent, Netflix and Amazon, you have to adhere to certain, for lack of a better word, politically correct norms. You have to have certain formulas that are more acceptable, marketable. As an independent filmmaker, well, we can do anything. We can, you can kill the main character in the second scene. You don't need the acceptable formulas that sell, in mainstream television. And I think that's a great advantage, being independent, where you have more freedom. However, with the more freedom, you do have less opportunity in terms of mainstream movies. But I just prefer creating my own unique brand of horror and marketing them and screening them at film festivals. And again, I do generate income I have a fairly large fan base that enjoys my brand of horror. Of course, I'd like to screen on Netflix and mainstream television, if I could make money from that. But you're right, you can't compete with Hollywood as being an independent, unless you either invest a ton of money or you get someone famous to appear in your movies.
Yes.
Or you hit just something that's unique, like Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity. Those filmmakers are on my level of filmmaking in terms of budget, but they just hit something that was very unique and had not been done before, and they attained mainstream success. So it is possible for people on my level of filmmaking to make it big, to make it in Hollywood. But you really got to hit something that hits a nerve, or something that no one has done before, which is still possible.
Well, myself, before we close this great discussion, I saw one time an explanation of the Blair Witch Project on the internet.
Mm-hmm. That was shot in New Jersey, by the way.
Really? Very good. The home of Bon Jovi.
Yes, my neighbor.
Yes, excellent.
Not really. He's about, I'd say, within an hour away from me.
Yes, yes.
He lives near our governor, by the way. He lives next door to our governor.
Excellent, excellent. So there was a theory about Blair Witch Project that, there were 3 students, 1 girl and 2 kids, the first film. There was a theory in the internet that there is no witch at all, but the 2 kids conspired to kill the girl.
Huh.
Yeah, yes. So this is one theory, one explanation of the film.
That's very interesting. I'll have to rewatch that.
You must rewatch. I will send you the link as well of this video. I think it would be interesting for you to watch. And as well, I wish you the best of luck in your upcoming projects.
Thank you so much.
And I think this COVID thing will inspire a lot of zombie apocalypse film.
Yes, indeed. I think it already has. And let's just hope it doesn't become a reality.
We hope so, only on the movies.
Yes, yes. But doesn't what's the expression? Art imitates reality.
Yes. Yes. And vice versa.
It's very challenging times,
of course,
but we can still create. And I got some ideas in my mind that I think I'll be coming out with some interesting things in the next few months. I just have to figure out how to shoot them safely.
Yes.
And but you got to keep creating. You can't let anything bring you down.
Yes.
Yes.